A Film Trace. This is a podcast where we trace the life of a film from production to conception all the way to release and reception. I think I screwed that up. I don't care. It's the end of 2022. We're doing a new format for the end of the year. Chris, what are we doing?
Yeah, we are taking a quick respite from our series of episodes about risque romance. We'll have the finale of that cycle of episodes coming up next week. But right now we wanted to take a look back, but not in, the usual just like blather on about the movies we liked or disliked this past year. We want to give it that film trace twist. And what we've typically done on this show throughout its many iterations over the years has been to look at, basically where did the movie come from and how did it get from conception to actually, on our streaming service or in the movie theaters or both. And so we were fascinated, especially with 2022, because there has been so much drama in the world of film production.
Yes.
And a lot of that has to do with COVID. Some of that has to do with cancel culture, quote mark. And even more of it just has to do with just like trying to figure out how the world of movies works today.
Yeah, it's a different world now. Completely different world. The industry is completely upended from COVID. So there's a lot of fallout.
And it was already like in the midst of being upended with the streaming wars, right? So
absolutely.
This has been quite the year for on-set and post-production drama. And we're going to count down for you the top 5 drama-iest productions in the film world for 2022. We don't have a catchy name for it. You're going to have to figure that out, Dan, when you title this thing.
That's true. Yeah, I'll have to get my copywriting skills going. How do you want to start this thing? You want to do honorable mentions first, or you want to start counting stuff down?
Yeah, we got to clear the air a little bit because at first we were going to do a top 10 list and we're just that's unwieldy. That's not.
We're going to talk way too much about these top 5, so we don't want to do a top 10. 3 hours long.
That wouldn't have been good for anybody. But I'm just going to hit you with these, Dan. And
here we go.
And then you give me your off the cuff reaction.
Sure.
For each of these honorable mentions, I got 4.
Swing away.
So one big piece of the puzzle in the film world and the drama inherent thereof this past year has not necessarily been in the making of the film, but the promoting of the film. So what I've got for you is a press circuit blunder. Director Andrew Dominik from Blonde told Sight and Sound when the lead up to the film being released on Netflix that, quote, no one watches Marilyn Monroe movies anymore. And he also said Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, a stone cold classic of the golden era of Hollywood, is, quote, a film about dressed up whores. And he said a lot of things.
His press tour was a disaster for that film.
And as was the film, but that's my opinion, not yours.
It was in my top. What was it? My top 5? I think it was my 3rd favorite movie of the year.
Tremendous error.
I mean, I feel like the reaction of people just made me like it more. If you know anything about my personality, it's just, oh, you guys don't like it?
Contrarian.
I'm going to triple down. No, I mean, this one is like the thing with the entire concept of Blonde was like cursed from the start. Like you can't make a super arty movie about Marilyn Monroe's life and like expect it to play well, right? Like I think the thing that I liked about that movie the most is that it was not like a drama. It was not a traditional like Oscar bait drama movie. It was like a weird experimental, like, I don't even know what the hell was going on half the time. I mean, it was like free association. It was like poetic logic. That's what I loved about it. But people just hated it. Hated it.
And I was one of them. I was quite disgusted.
But he didn't do himself any favors by,
No, he did not. So that's the one. The press circuit can be rough, but like a lot of people just
shot himself in the foot, essentially.
And it's mostly these white guys that wish that they were auteurs but don't quite have enough cachet to really get there yet.
Oh, shots fired. Damn.
Okay, let's talk about
What's next?
some on the shelf silliness. One of the things that COVID did is, put a bunch of movies on hold, but this one has actually was on the shelf for 7 years before it finally got released this year.
Is that why I've never heard of this movie?
Yes. It's ridiculous. You think most movies, like I'd say random guess, 90% of movies that are shelved for more than 5 years just are not going to see the light of day, right?
Yeah, very common.
Somehow this one did. It's called The King's Daughter, starring Pierce Brosnan and Kaya Scodelario. It's a fantasy romance, kind of coming of age picture, but it's just ridiculous that it was originally supposed to come out in 2015. It just kept changing distribution hands from Focus to Open Road, and eventually PVOD company Gravitas Ventures put it out, and they also released it theatrically, which just made things worse.
Why would you even pay to do that? This thing was shot in April 2014.
Insane.
Like, what? Why? I mean, I guess because it's got like Pierce Brosnan, right? I mean, he's a draw, I guess. Is he actually though?
Not anymore. I don't think. Maybe back. No, not even back then.
Like art house, you would be like. Remember the Matador? Where that movie was? I feel like ever since then, he's like been more of an art housey draw type guy.
But he also did like that. The terrible movie? I think you watched it with me. Some Kind of Beautiful, with him and Salma Hayek.
Did I watch that with you?
I don't know.
I don't remember watching it. Oh wait, that sounds vaguely familiar.
He's done a lot of trash.
Yeah, there's no reason to put this movie out. Number one, number two, it needs to be on like I don't know, like the Roku channel, original channel, like you know what I mean. It has that vibe to it, like a new streaming service that's trying to get started. Like Crackle might be a Crackle original.
Right.
But there's
like ABC Family and put commercials in it.
Yeah, or like Hulu. I don't know. Like, there's no reason to put this thing out.
No.
And that's pretty embarrassing, if I'm being honest. Pretty embarrassing across the board.
Absolutely.
What else we got?
So we'll talk about cancel culture a little bit later in the show, but this is a straight up cancel culture fail. Didn't actually work, sadly. The whole drama with Johnny Depp and Fantastic Beasts: The Secret of Dumbledore. He was fired in the midst of the big blow up with his high profile divorce from Amber Heard and the lawsuits going both ways. And fast forward, the movie comes out. It does well without him. He loses, a $10 million paycheck, but then he is basically awarded that exact amount as a result of the libel case with his ex-wife, Amber Heard.
Has anybody seen this movie? Have you seen this movie?
I've never seen any of the Fantastic Beasts.
So here's the deal on the Fantastic Beasts. So I vaguely saw the Harry Potter movies. I think I've seen all of them in bits and pieces since they came out, but never in one sitting, any of them.
Yeah, I've only seen the first three.
And then I watched all of Fantastic Beasts, the first one, and I was like, if this is what Harry Potter's really like, I don't want any of it. Because it's just, I mean, we're talking the most dour, boring, like CGI, like gruel on screen. And how did is this the third movie, isn't it?
I used to know that.
I feel like it's a third one. I feel like they had three of these.
Well, and the whole J.K. Rowling stuff.
In the first one, wasn't he?
No, he was in the second.
He's in the second one.
And it's one of those things where they didn't just fire him; they kept the character, but then recast.
And they, Matt Mikkelsen. What's his name? Yes, he was amazing. We all love. Everybody loves him.
Except, he's a Jordan Peterson stan. So let's.
Is he really?
He is.
That's gross. I feel like he eats too much meat or something.
Yeah,
that's what they like having in common.
Complicated. Yeah.
The whole Depp thing. I mean, what a disaster. I don't know. Remember that GQ profile that came out about him like 4 years ago or 5 years ago? And
it was just like one where it was just like he was out of his mind on drugs.
No, that but it's just like so sad. He's like constantly drinking red wine, and I'm like, this is just. He's like one of those guys like Michael Jackson, maybe, who just like. Michael Jackson's a whole different story, I guess. someone who's so famous that they just become like locked in their own little like snow globe world. Mm-hmm. And it's just like never have no connection to the outside world or other people. That's like Johnny Depp, and he's also apparently a pretty bad abuser.
Right. So. And which has just like catapulted that, toxic online fan base. And
oh my gosh.
Okay,
Who
let's not
defends
talk
Johnny
about
Depp,
that.
though?
Horrible people. Shelved and squashed. So not just on the shelf, but then just like squashed completely. We would be remiss to do an episode on this topic of production and release drama in the film industry without mentioning the whole HBO Max tax write-off controversy of 2022.
Yeah.
And in particular, probably their highest profile feature film release that was slated to come out, that was literally completed, was Batgirl. And that unfortunately will never see the light of day. Completed. Like,
holy
literally,
shit, I didn't know
they
that.
just put finishing touches on the visual effects, and then HBO Max just came out with that.
The
call.
financials don't. That makes no sense financially. Like, that's all made up bullshit. Like that.
It's
you
just
could literally do like a light marketing campaign. It's Batgirl. You can make your something back in streaming audiences and whatever. Put it on HBO Max or whatever. That's just, there's something off about the whole thing. Well, the whole Warner Brothers, HBO thing, Discovery, it sounds very messy.
Yeah.
And like, this is unfortunately, one of the fallouts is they're just like blowing up these projects that are already done.
Yeah.
It had Brendan Fraser in it.
Brendan Fraser as the villain is Firefly. And it was the directors of Bad Boys for Life, which was like, it will go down in history as the, not a great movie, but as the last movie, the first movie to like be a hit after COVID, right?
Yeah.
Or was it before COVID?
No, it was the last movie to be a hit before COVID.
Before COVID.
Came out in January 2020.
Yes, that's right. But like, and people expected, that reunion to be successful, but it outperformed most predictions, right?
Oh, it did very, very well. Yeah, right. People loved it.
So these guys are on fire, Adil El Arbi and Bilal Fallah, and it seemed like a slam dunk. Michael Keaton reprising his Batman role as well. And you shelve that and you say it's never going to come out? That's insane.
I feel like the tax write-off thing was from a rival studio. That was like, how can we like get these guys in the mud, essentially?
Interesting.
Because it makes no sense. We got one more, don't we? Well, last but not least on the
last honorable mention. And it's a doozy. I am not a video game guy. Maybe you can speak a little bit to this, Dan.
Yeah.
But even not knowing much of anything about video games, I knew that like there's a huge audience that had been clamoring for over a decade for the Uncharted movie to come out.
Yeah.
The adaptation of the adventure game. And it was 2008 when it was first being like tossed around Hollywood. It was originally scripted by the screenwriters of Sahara and Sound of Thunder. I don't know why that's the screenwriting team that gets to do it. No. And then David O. Russell, who we'll talk about later.
Oh, God. I almost threw up in my mouth.
Was attached for a while. Fans had mounted an online campaign to get Nathan Fillion from the Joss Whedon universe to.
It would have been perfect.
That's what it seems like most people thought, and to the point where like he even starred in like a fan made short film to try to like capitalize on that online campaign. Mark Wahlberg starts like saying things like, "I want De Niro to play my uncle."
Oh my God!
But then like he does end up in the movie eventually, but it takes over 14 years for this thing to finally come out. It changes hands not only from David O. Russell, but also to Neil Berger, the guy that did Limitless and Divergent, to Joe Carnahan, who did Narc and The Blacklist, and Sean Levy, who did Night at the Museum and Date Night and Free Guy, and then even Dan Trachtenberg, who put out one of the better movies of this year, the Predator franchise installment, Prey. And then finally it lands in Ruben Fleischer's lap, and it seems like it kind of just came and went. Tom Holland, Spider-Man, the star.
I have a different opinion of this film than most people.
Do you like
I don't think of that. I don't think that it's actually that bad. I saw it in the theater opening weekend, of course.
Oh my gosh.
And look, it has nothing to do with the video game. I think that's the problem, right? Because I went in like I've played Uncharted. My PS4 is an Uncharted version, so like I know the game. But like the problem with that is that like Uncharted's Indiana Jones. So like there's this weird, and this came up in some like New Yorker article or something about the New Yorker article about Last of Us. And they talked about the struggle of video games to, transition into TV and film successfully. It's never really been done all that well. Last of Us is the first example. It's a masterpiece. I haven't seen it yet. But one of the points that they make in the article is that because video games are already based on TV, and film, it becomes this weird reflexive circle. Like Resident Evil is a good example. Like it's all based on like Romero stuff, and it's just like it doesn't. I don't know. It's hard to do. It becomes a copy of a copy of a copy eventually, right?
Right.
And the thing I liked about Uncharted is that like the movie it's very breezy, it's dumb as hell, but it's super fun, and it's just like a dumb adventure movie. But if you tried to compare it to Uncharted, it's a complete disaster. It's nothing to do with it, right? So I think that's why people are kind of like sore about it.
Never gonna see it, but that's fine.
Oh, it's fun. Morbius fun.
Okay, let's
the
do
girl
this.
in it from The Wilds is in it. She's phenomenal.
I don't know what you're talking about.
All right, let's get to this top 5. Let's get the show on the road.
Boom.
What's number 5?
This one was your pick, so you gotta go, I gotta hear your take. I saw an advanced screening of this movie, and I still didn't even realize how much drama was behind the creation of it.
Oh yeah, so number 5 is The Northman by Robert Eggers. It had to be on the list. Absolutely had to be. It makes okay. So just the background. If you don't know Robert Eggers, he did The Lighthouse, which I think is I would call it an experimental film. The Witch is an old English, incredibly hard film to sort of engage with if you're not into like horror movies. But they all of them hit pretty well with the art house A24 crowd, right? So based on that cachet, he gets this massive budget, which starts out at $65 million, which already I don't think he had shot a movie for over 15 million before this, right? So they give him this huge budget. And they're basically like, he teams up with Skarsgård and says, "Hey, let's make a Viking movie. That sounds fun." A new Regency is like, "Here you go. Here's your check." And then I guess they didn't know him that well or something. He basically went down several rabbit holes of Viking culture. To the point where like the end product, I mean, this is considered the most authentic Viking movie ever made, I guess, which is cool. But from the moment that it was announced, I am, from the old podcast, a pretty wonky box office nerd. It made zero sense what they were doing because there's no audience for a Viking movie. There's literally none, unless it's like based on like that Viking show on like the History Channel or whatever bullshit channel it's on. Like a soap opera but in Viking times. And this is Robert Eggers. Like he's going to make like the boats like replicas of the real boats. Even if it's just like a mile off from the shot, it's going to be real. And so what essentially ensued is they did, let him kind of do his thing with that massive budget. The moment the test screening comes in, and if you ever want to know anything about like making movies, you got to read the New Yorker essay on this because it is absolutely hilarious, the entire thing. Let's see what they said. So it had a test score, and out of 100, it scored in the mid 60s, which is horrifically bad. So essentially, they had to go back and recut it. The other thing here that's fascinating about this movie is they didn't do any coverage shots. They just did single camera for everything. So going back and editing it, there's not a lot of choice. You just have whatever you actually filmed on that single camera. So, and the budget ballooned to $90 million. So it's a $90 million Viking art film. That I don't know how you felt about it. It was absolutely my favorite movie of the year. Whoa. Despite its financial failure. I think it's an absolute masterpiece, and we'll never see anything like it again because he won't ever make a movie like this ever again. What do you think about it?
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, it was quite the thing to see on the big screen. I will absolutely concede that it was spectacularly visual in all the ways you want, like a movie that is going to completely commit to something so detail oriented, but also just like mythical in stature. And I think that's kind of where my appreciation of the movie kind of faltered because like
what
maybe that's just part of the deal because he went so deep into Viking lore. He essentially retold the story of Amleth, which is the Norse version of Hamlet that Shakespeare wrote his play based on. And so it's a story that's been told a billion times, and it's pretty stale. It's pretty lockstep in terms of like, you know, all the trimmings are wonderful, but you basically just have another revenge movie of a guy wanting to avenge his father's death. And you know, the actors also commit 1,000%.
Yeah.
The movie probably also benefits greatly from the appearance of Bjork's first on-screen performance in years. And, you know, I wondered, like, how did he manage this and then with some research for this episode, figured out that Eggers co-wrote the movie with Sion, who was in that band, the Sugar Cubes with Bjork back in the 80s.
Back in the day, yeah.
So that's how probably she gets convinced. And it's, you know, she has a wonderful little part. Willem Dafoe has a wonderful little part.
Oh, he's wonderful, yeah.
You know, it's definitely big, and it's really like a really fun watch, and like you said, a very, super unique, never going to get anything like it again kind of watch. But it is, you know, it's just a lot of brutal bloodiness, and I don't know if that's a movie like I will want to revisit.
I've watched it multiple times this year. It's just a classic.
You're strange.
It's an instant classic.
I'll go back and rewatch The Lighthouse instead.
Well, that's the thing. Like, did you like The Lighthouse a lot?
Oh, I love The Lighthouse.
You're a sick human being. I almost walked out of it. One of the worst movies I've ever seen in my entire life.
Well, that's the thing, is like the Lighthouse, it has like such a strange sense of humor, and it's layered, and I didn't get, it's like the Northman is just so serious, and so
it's very serious, which is why I love it.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, we'll never see anything like it again. He basically says in the New Yorker, I'm never doing this again. Like, he said it was the worst experience of my life.
Yeah.
Getting like notes from a studio to edit this thing. Yeah. Right. So
and I think they not only had the issue of the test screenings, but also, like, I think all 5 of the movies on our list had COVID to deal with.
Yeah, I think
and so they had
all
these very ornate sets that just stood for months on end. And, you know, on the downside, that probably just helped balloon the budget more, because they had to repair things and like redo things and all that, but also like made the world of the movie feel really authentic, because it was clear that like those sets that they built were like weathered for several months before they actually got used, which is a silver lining, I guess.
Yeah, it's like a lot of the stuff that we're seeing, like this one, Northman, is supposed to start in March 2020, right? Mm-hmm. Like, and it's just the same with our next movie, actually, number 4 on the list. This was supposed to start in February 2020. It's like these films are cursed, to start right in that list. Any final thoughts on Northman?
No, let's move on. We got a lot of ground to cover.
A lot of ground to cover. Is this your pick or my pick? I think it's your pick.
This one's mine, I think.
You introduced it. Tell us all about it.
And I knew that because I was going to pick it, I would have to watch it, which was going to be a challenge because I hadn't watched the franchise's installment that came before it. And so I would have to watch 2 bad movies. But I'm interested to talk about it and hear your thoughts on it. Jurassic World Dominion. Absolutely, hands down, the worst Jurassic Park movie yet. Oh. And that's saying something.
Yeah. I mean, it's
just so bad.
It's something special.
It's such a trash fire, but it's also just like such a boring trash fire. Like, it's just ugh. Okay, so anyways, let's get into like what happened. The capstone of a new trilogy that was financially successful, and it ended up. I'm gonna pause down. Let's do a clap. I gotta go deal with it.
Okay, hold on. Done.
Okay, be right back. Ooh, a pass fire save the day.
All right.
All right.
Right. Boom. Back into it. All right, Jurassic Park Dominion. Yeah, I would say it's probably up there with Batman versus Superman. Right, it's like the worst blockbuster put out there. But like I was reading through the production notes on how this thing like started. Yeah, it starts to film in supposed to film in February 2020. Obviously goes in hiatus in March 2020 is the pen. As COVID spreads across the world, they restart in July 2020. This is the part I found most fascinating. So like Jurassic World Dominion is basically like how they produced this during the COVID was the paradigm of how other movies did it.
Right.
And so they kind of set down the standard.
It was like this in the new
it's like ridiculous.
It was like this in the new Mission Impossible, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Which still isn't out yet.
Oh yeah, wasn't there like a leak from like Tom Cruise like yelling at people on that set?
Oh yeah, totally.
Oh yeah, okay. But yeah, there's like $5 million on safety protocols and tests, but I think it ballooned to $9 million. They basically put up everybody in a single hotel to isolate them, which I find. Here's the thing about this, because we've covered COVID movies before, and it's like, you know, sometimes you can tell that like it just was not a normal movie shoot. Mm-hmm. On this one, he makes it sound like, oh, it was amazing. Trevor says he and the cast formed a close relationship while they lived together for 4 months, allowing them to create characters in a way that I would never have the opportunity to do if not for the pandemic protocols.
Thank you, COVID. What?
Yeah, I don't. And like, here's the thing: that does not translate on screen at all.
No,
Rick. It feels like this was all filmed on a green screen.
Oh yeah.
There's no chemistry with any of the characters.
Especially
I don't know, like
the legacy characters that return, right? Sam Neill and Laura Dern
like
agree to come back. Oh my god!
In here, like and
here's the thing. I don't think that COVID was even the main culprit, to be honest.
No, absolutely not.
The drama with this movie goes back to 2015 when Jurassic World, the first one of the new trilogy, came out, and Colin Trevorrow said essentially, and by the way, Jurassic World's not good. Jurassic World,
it's terrible.
Fallen Kingdom, not good, but fun.
No.
I had a lot of fun with that one.
I don't know about that.
It's bad, but it's fun.
I think of these three Jurassic Worlds, by far the best, and it's not even good.
Oh, okay. So. Okay. Anyways, but like he had said in 2015, I'm not going to touch the next two. Like, this is my baby, the first one. I want to see what other people do with the franchise. And which it ended up being this whole ironic thing because he name dropped the Star Wars franchise, because that was the original plan for that new sequel trilogy. And he was tapped to finish that trilogy for Rise of Skywalker after J.J. Abrams' Force Awakens and Rian Johnson Last Jedi. But then he got fired from that. And so then J.J. Abrams took over that one, ruined that trilogy. And then Colin Trevorrow returns to Jurassic World and says he wants to finish this trilogy now, and he ruins his own thing that he started. It's just
there's a great quote where he goes planning the beginning, middle, and end of the trilogy ahead of time is, quote, crucial to a franchise like this if you really want to bring people along with you and make sure they stay interested. It needs to be thought through on that level. Wait, hold for it. It can't be arbitrary. The early Jurassic Park movies had pretty clear definitive endings. They're much more episodic. Come on, dude.
Oh my gosh.
Here's the thing. That's actually not even a bad thought. But then why did he go ahead and make the worst trilogy narrative maybe of all time? Can you tell me what it is?
Oh no, barely.
Remember the second one? They're cloning humans. Like, where did that?
Yes.
Like that makes no sense. Like,
at least the second one, and also which also struggles with that whole idea of like where does this movie take place? It's not in a theme park anymore. So, but at the very least, like it was concise and it had like the audaciousness. That was J.A. Bayona, who did The Orphanage and The Impossible. He's never really made a good movie, but he has potential, I think. Whereas this one, like everything's thrown out. Like not only like Jake Johnson, who was in the first movie but not the second, was going to come back, and he couldn't because of the COVID protocols.
Omar Sy, who plays Chris Pratt's sidekick in the first movie, returns without explanation in the third one. The cloning human thing happens, and it's got me, somebody who like read both of Michael Crichton's books growing up and watched the first Jurassic Park a million times, is like trying to like parse out with like wiki fandom sites who these characters are they're referring to that supposedly had some kind of connection to the very first Jurassic Park. It's just it's insanity. There's so many loose ends that are never connected. And you're right, like what the hell is this movie about? Like half the movie's about bugs, not dinosaurs.
Locusts, right? Locusts. I don't like, and it just goes to show you that, and like we've seen this. I don't know. I think we got lulled into a weird sense of like, you know, when Force Awakens came out, did you go see it? Did you like it?
I liked it. Okay. I wasn't over the moon. But
I bought into it. So I went to go see it like 3 times in the theater, and I got that rush. I got that like insane blockbuster rush. I was like, oh my God, this is it. This is like,
I got that rush from Last Jedi. So.
Jesus Christ!
Don't do this, man.
But I'm saying this. Okay, so I think the whole South Park Member Berries plotline from that year. You know, it's like the whole nostalgia play. I don't know what people were thinking, but like it doesn't work unless you make an amazing movie like Top Gun Maverick, which is basically a masterpiece. God, and I'm just like, how it is what. So, but here we go. I'm gonna give me a 1 second rant here. At the end of the day, Jurassic World Dominion sucks, not because it was shot during COVID, not because it was like so hard to do. It sucks because this story was complete and utter trash. Mm-hmm. And like, there's zero respect for like story writers in this film, and it's almost like they don't even care.
No,
they're just like, yeah, we'll put some dinosaurs in it, but they're not main characters. They're just side characters. Yeah. They're basically the dinosaurs have a bit part in this movie, and it's just like, what were you thinking? And then you have like Chris Pratt, who is like cardboard, and it's just the whole thing is like you have to have a story. You gotta have a protagonist. You gotta have conflict. I feel like one of those guys at one of those script writing schools. I'm like,
Save the cat,
and like Glendale, just like you gotta
Brian Cox an adaptation.
Yeah, exactly. But it's kind of true on some level. There needs to be something
for these big tentpole movies. It's at least true.
Oh yeah, this is a 4-quad movie, so you need to tell me a story.
Oh my gosh,
story redemption like Maverick.
Like, nobody wanted to talk about it.
It's terrible. But it made like 1.5 billion or something.
Oh sure, because people saw it out of obligation to just
I saw it. Oh God, and this
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get that taste out of our mouth and get a worse taste in our mouth. Number 3. Is this technically my pick?
Yeah, this is your pick, and maybe this whole episode was a bad idea. Now that we're just like full of hate,
I'm just full of bile.
But we're gonna.
We've earned the right to do this. So number 3 is David O. Russell's Amsterdam, the 2022 masterpiece of film. I cheated on this. I cheated. So like there is no real drama with this movie.
It's in the release of the film.
There's in something in the release, yeah, but like ultimately on set. So here's the deal with David O. Russell. We could do literally a whole show about how terrible of a human being he is. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. There's the famous stories. There's the video, the Lily Tomlin incident, I Heart Huckabees, where he basically berates her on set, calls her a C word, everything. There's the fist fight with George Clooney on, what was that, Three Kings?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And then there's the Amy Adams story. Then there's the story about him physically attacking Christopher Nolan at a party. I forget why this was. I think like Russell apparently like stole somebody from him, or like Christopher Nolan stole somebody from a movie. I don't even care. And then that's just the tip of the iceberg. Then in December 2011, he basically gropes his transgendered niece. And this is not an allegation. This is a police report, and he admits to doing it in the police report.
Yeah.
And so you're just like
in daytime in public at a gym.
In a gym, right? It's just like this. It's disgusting.
Yeah, and usually it wouldn't be important to mention that the niece is transgender, but in this case, it was like
part of the conversation.
Right, he was like trying to say like, "Oh, you're transitioning," and like that was the
the impetus for the groping and the harassment, and it's just like, but okay, so here's the details that I think tie this back to Amsterdam, because you're right, all this garbage about his garbage past, it ends essentially at 2012, right?
Okay, yeah.
There's been really nothing about him since then. Either it's been locked up or he's found a way to I don't care. But like, the point is that the press played a big role in Amsterdam's downfall. It helps that the movie's also just absolutely horrible. But
terrible movie.
we'll get into that. But I realized this in doing research for this episode, that New York Magazine, Vulture in particular, their blog, pop culture blog, that's notorious for just causing shit, stirring shit, specifically like released a detailed timeline of allegations against O. Russell between the years of like 98 and 2012, 2 days before Amsterdam comes out.
Oh, I had no idea.
They timed that shit. And so like everybody's talking specifically about the transgender niece thing, which happened in 2012. Here in 2022, because I don't think it even made a splash really in 2012. He had already been in so much.
It had already been,
trouble.
But that story had been around forever. Like it was on Smoking Gun for like since it happened.
Yeah.
So I don't like it. Why the? Here's what I don't understand. Like why the character sessions is not the right term, because he deserves everything that he's getting. But why now? Like, why Amsterdam too? Like this, like dumb movie like.
The only thing that, because I was thinking about this, you're right. There's not like, obviously Christian Bale's stand for O. Russell numerous times throughout their on pretty common working relationship, but. There was actually a lot of drama with casting the part that went to John David Washington. Like Jennifer Lawrence was supposed to be in this movie again. Jamie Foxx, Michael B. Jordan. Like it was quite a wild ride. And then Margot Robbie gets cast in the lead female role, and she does say at the New York premiere to press, quote, "Oh, Russell's stars often show up without knowing what you're going to shoot that day, which is terrifying and also exhilarating." So, like, there's got to be something, and Collider, a source that I don't always trust a lot of the time, actually had a really interesting analysis of Amsterdam, and actually, you could probably apply this analysis to a lot of his films, where it's just like there's such like a deep misogyny in his movies, and including this one, that there's got to be something like between, I'm the one starting shit now, just stirring the pot.
Armchair psychologist over here.
But like between Margot Robbie and Anya Taylor-Joy and Taylor Swift, like there's like the biggest names in pop culture in this movie. Zoe Saldana. Somebody must have like said something. I don't know if like. There must be some kind of connection. Somebody at Vulture knew somebody who knew somebody, and they timed that perfectly, because Vulture also did the exact same thing with our number one movie, which we'll get to in a little bit.
Really? I didn't know there were like press hits out on people.
Oh yeah, totally.
Just to note, same studio as Northman. So New Regency is going to be struggling financially. Deadline says this movie will lose them $97 million.
Yeah, it bombed. And I mean, let's talk briefly about how bad this movie is.
Oh my God.
Without any of the baggage. Like, one of the COVID related things with this film is when they restarted production, it was originally supposed to be shot in Boston, which would make sense because it's, about like, old world, both America and Europe. You get probably more out of location shooting on the East Coast. When they come back after COVID, the entire cast basically says like, yeah, we'll come back to work, but I'm not leaving Los Angeles. This movie is just so painfully, like, even with like, who's the cinematographer? It's like Kaminsky, right?
Yeah. A lot of close-up stuff.
It's just like, so yeah, it's like a Chris Columbus movie. Like, it's tons of medium shots, and like there's nothing like big that feels like it feels like a middle school project. It
feels
really
like a play almost in a lot of ways. But the problem is that like the script's not good enough to support It's not like
Yes.
you know,
It's a
it's
nonsense
not like
script.
Glengarry Glen Ross over here. You know what I mean? It's
No,
not.
no.
It's not that low. And then you have John David Washington, who like
Oh
I
my
don't want
God.
to point out is just like, you know, obviously a nepo baby, but whatever.
But he
But
is.
one of the worst actors today who gets A-list parts.
Oh my God.
He is unwatchable in basically every role except that Malcolm movie he was good in. That was a great COVID movie where they're stuck in the house together. Him and
No,
Zendaya.
come on. Let's not bring that up.
That was
Jesus.
fun. I enjoyed it. I thought it was weird and
Oh,
fun.
gosh. I think he's not bad in Black Klansman, but that's because he's got Spike Lee's script behind him.
Yeah. He has the charisma of, I don't know, like a slug on the screen.
Yeah.
He just
bad.
can't do it. I mean, Amsterdam is like, had to be on the list just because hugely bloated budget because people were lazy and didn't want to leave Los Angeles. And literally no one wanted to see this movie, especially after that Vulture piece. But even before that, I was all over, what is it? Dumois, where the hell that like gossip website is. They were trashing David O. Russell like months before this movie came out.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is a no-go from the start, a complete disaster. What do we got? Number 2. This is your pick.
Yes. Hold on. I gotta
Yeah, go for it.
real back.
You're good.
Okay, this pacifier is just saving my life.
All right.
Let's
do this. And go. Number 2. What do we got? Number 2 is what here, Chris? What do you got for us?
It's Morbin time, y'all.
Oh God.
I can't believe I just said that out loud. It's Morbius. How do you talk about 2022 in review and the fiascos and bullshittery therein without mentioning Jared Leto as the living vampire in the Sony verse? I still don't.
Yeah,
understand.
technically Sonyverse. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's hard to pick apart this whole thing. Like the production history on this one's insane.
It's been also very long, not quite as long as Uncharted, but I mean, this I guess actually longer than Uncharted.
No, way longer because this is
You're
back
right.
to like 2000.
2000.
Because remember we got like what is it, Artisan Entertainment, who Blair Witch, project came out in 99. That's what they're famous for.
Right.
I think they shuttered it in 2003. They got bought by Lionsgate. But they had the rights for this thing. They had the rights for all of Marvel because
Right.
Marvel is doing movies with them, and then like Marvel almost bought Artisan, but then like, nah, we're not going to do that. And Morbius was a part of that whole package.
Right. And he was supposed to appear in the Blade franchise.
The Blade movies.
And
but I don't know, why did that not happen though? I can't remember. I think
So-
the guy didn't want to show up or something.
the director of the original Blade, Stephen Norrington, had a cameo in the first Blade, and it was supposed to turn into be an alley-oop to him play Morbius in the second Blade. But then they fired him for Blade 2, got a new director, and so that Morbius just never became a character. And so, this character's, it seems like it's a ridiculous character, right? A vampire super villain anti-hero. Like it's insane. But, especially from like 2000s Hollywood point of view, like you see the rising star of the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, and also just like vampire culture is like at its zenith,
from Twilight.
right? Yeah. So it seems like a no-brainer. They try to get Antoine Fuqua, the Equalizer, Replacement Killers. He said he would do it if he, got to have more of a say in what the movie ended up being. That's not how these comic book movies go. So he gets tossed. F. Gary Gray, who did Set It Off and some of the Fast and Furious movies, considered it, but same kind of thing. Like he wanted more control, and that's saying something for somebody that's like willing to work within the confines of the Fast and Furious universe, but not Sony's comic book stuff. And so they finally, it's actually Jared Leto who had been circulating as the guy that wanted to get Morbius made and play the character, who met Daniel Espinosa, who ended up directing the 2022 film, while he was on tour with 30 Seconds to Mars, or whatever his band's called.
Yeah, I've seen him live. He's great. He's a great front man.
Yeah. So okay. Well, we can pretend that didn't happen. But he's a music video director. It seems just like a no-brainer, but it's not going to be a good movie, but maybe it'll be passable. I don't know. Jared Leto also, in the midst of all this, is like winning an Oscar somehow.
Oh, yeah, because Dallas Buyers Club,
right?
Which I saw him. I saw Jared Leto at the Dallas Buyers Club SAB screening because he did like an interview for it. It was so bizarre.
Oh, weird.
He's stranger in person than
he's such a weird
on screen. He's an absolute bonkers human being.
Oh my god!
And also, how is he not being canceled yet?
I know, right?
The stories about him are just unbelievable. Him and underage women, hundreds of stories are out there, and it's just like, how does Vulture not go after him?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it's who knows. So the main thing with Morbius, right, is not the production, though it was definitely long gestating, but it's actually the memes, right? And it being the first movie to have the internet meme it into re-release, and so it bombs a second time. So this is amazing. More of a release execution thing, perhaps more than production, because you look at the movie objectively. I don't know. You I'm curious your thoughts, and maybe this is just like a hype thing. Like, I was expecting absolute trash. I actually kind of had fun watching Morbius.
No, what are you doing? Morbius is absolute. The problem with Morbius is this. It was initially conceived back in the 2000s, right? It feels like a pre-X-Men comic book movie.
Right.
I feel like X-Men changed everything. What was that, 2000? And then a couple sequels after that, or in the early 2000s. That's when like comic books became not serious, but like higher level, because we grew up in the 90s. We had like, Spawn and like trash like that. And like
I kind of have a soft spot for that trash. And the Blade movies too. There's something just like dingy and like
you're right. Okay.
It reminds me of bands like Stabbing Westward and Gravity Kills.
Yeah, industrial like LA music.
Right.
Yeah, there's something to them. It's so weird seeing one of those movies now, like Morbius. You like watch and I was like, this is not MCU. This is not DCEU.
No.
It's just not good enough. It's like a bargain bin comic book movie stuff. And like, that's why I got attacked. And like, also Jared Leto is like a freak and like not in a good way. And like, I don't know, the whole thing. It was fun to follow though. And the fact that like nerds got Sony to re-release the movie so it failed a second time, that's pretty monumental. Yeah. That's like if they like hyped up and said, like, oh, we were busy the weekend that Snakes on the Plane came out, so can you re-release it and see, and they would do it. You know what I mean? And that's essentially what they said in Morbius. They're like, oh, the third time they're going to release, we were busy that weekend. There's like a change.org petition going on to get it out a third time.
Incredible.
But yeah, I mean, here's the thing about this movie. It's like, yeah, it's shot in 2019. They did reshoots in February 2020, right before the pandemic. And my favorite part about this movie was like the weird release schedule thing, where they're like, they pushed it to July 31st, 2020. This is back in 2019 they did this. COVID hits, they're like, okay, it's not going to happen. So I'm going to do March 19th, 2021. Then they delayed it again to October 2021. Then they delayed it to January 2022. And they just got to keep pushing it. And then they pushed it back again because Spider-Man No Way Home was doing so well. So they finally, when did it come out? April? Yeah, April 2022. Yeah. Like we're talking like 6 moves on the date at least.
Right.
And here's the thing about the memeage, right? The memes happened because people knew before it came out it was trash.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like they just walked in there with, with their guns loaded essentially and be like, how can we rip this thing apart? And I don't know. It's just fun to hate on it. It's a good hate movie, you know, because there's nothing redeeming about it for the most part. It's just Jared Leto's ego just running wild.
And I guess that's where, like, at the very least, and you had like, oh god, who was there?
you have him saying with zero comic delivery, "I am Venom," and compare that to like Tom Hardy just like sinking his teeth into that very role.
But
in
the
a way
Venom
more
thing's
successful.
a perfect counter to this. I
Right.
hate that movie too. Like both the Venoms are completely. I mean, they're not.
It's trashy,
they're kitsch.
but yeah.
It's kitsch. But Morbius is like not even kitsch. It's just like middle browed trash. You know, it's just. It's not it, man. It's not it.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Without further ado, the last one on our list was just a no-brainer. It was just like neither of us picked it. It picked us. It picked everyone, really, in 2022. We're talking, of course, about Don't Worry, Darling. And we don't need to rehash everything that the internet took care of.
There's so much to go through, though. Oh, my God. Yeah, we don't have... There's literally a novel's worth of gossip to read about this movie.
There will definitely be, like, a book written by a Rolling Stone journalist that will somehow wind up on the New York bestsellers list.
And they'll make a movie about it. And that'll win Oscars.
No, it'll be a Ryan Murphy miniseries, probably. Feud, yeah.
Did you sit through his Golden Globe thing last night?
No, I couldn't.
Can't deal with it. How do you want to bite into the apple of this movie? How about the thing that you found? How did you dive into the gossip of this? I dove in really early.
Okay.
Because I remember hearing stuff about, well, number one, when she started to date Harry Styles on set, I think it was January. I forget what year it was. Maybe like the year before, whatever, it was 2020 or something. They, when they started dating, I was like, well, that's weird because I always knew that she was with Jason Sudeikis and they had kids together. And I was like, weren't they married? Why is she dating Harry Styles? Like immediately it clicked off. I was like, this is bizarre. Also, you're going to hate me for doing this, but I want to do it, Chris.
Oh, shit.
This is such a minefield. Okay. Let's say
I don't like the tone. I don't like your tone.
Let's say the genders were changed in this situation.
Here we go.
I mean, seriously though, like if a man was directing a movie and there was a younger woman and he started dating her on the movie set, right?
Whatever. Yeah, you're right.
It would be a disaster. Here it was sort of like, well, that's weird, but whatever. And the manager's like, go get it, girl. Like, Harry Styles is beautiful, whatever. And I'm like, yeah, sure, I guess. But then, that's how I started to sort of latch onto it because I'm also really into gossip. What about you?
Okay, so, I mean, I definitely got... Well, first of all, like, I saw the movie poster and the trailer, and I was like, oh, it looks like, I think people joked about it, but it really did look like a potentially promising, quote, white feminist version of Get Out, which is, I think, pretty on point. And it could have potentially been that without, spoilers for Don't Worry, Darling, from here out. But yeah, it's an atrocious film with some really beautiful
though.
Cinematography.
Really good cinematography, yeah.
And some like decent performances butted up against some really horrible performances.
Chris Pine's phenomenal in it. Not phenomenal. Oh, yeah. Chris Pine is very good at it.
Yeah, he
Hammy is
pulls
hell,
his
but
weight.
like he works. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you end up having, and it's Florence Pugh, right? Like this movie could have just been written off completely if it had been like, I don't know, Kate Bosworth or something.
What
right?
are you, Kate Bosworth? Why would you do that to her?
It's the first name that came to mind. She's
catching strays when she hasn't been in a movie for 20 years. What are you doing?
Anyways. So I was like actually kind of excited about the film at first, and then Venice happened. And so that was like my entry point because I doom scrolled.
Okay. So I would call you a little bit of a Don't Worry, Darling late bloomer in terms of the drama. Because this stuff was popping off way before.
After the fact, I found out. But here was my biggest entry point because I'm not a gossip hound. So I was just kind of like, oh, that's kind of funny. Whatever, like entertaining passively. But the biggest entry point was for me because I teach high school journalism. Yeah. And so I teach teenagers and they're all gossip hounds. And so like none of them cared one iota about this movie. They probably still haven't even seen it. But they got so into, and I had one student in particular that wanted to write a story for our A&E section in the school newspaper.
These kids are great. You're doing a good job,
outlining.
Chris.
Thank you. But like, I had to learn so much about this drama to help this student with her piece, especially because it was her first story for the paper that she'd ever written. So it was like, I was deep in it, but not wanting to be. You were deep in it.
Oh, I was deep in it, wanting
enjoyed
every second of it, because like there's just like forums and stuff online where like people who are like associated, like kind of like not insiders, but people who work in the industry, and they'll like leak stuff out just for fun. And like the initial leaks on this were insane. Like they were nuts, and people were like attacking the people for saying it. The stuff that was coming out was that like Olivia and Harry were disappearing and basically screwing in his trailer during the shoot. And that like Florence would just be on set waiting to shoot something, and they were off having sex, and that like the director of photography had to take over shots and everything. Like it was like bonkers stuff, and no one really believed it, but it got spread because that's how stuff, you know, it's a rumor, like, it's fun. And then, but like as more and as like it was sort of like a gossiper's dream, right, that would be true. Right. But then like as more and more stuff came out, it's like, oh, this actually sounds like it could have happened. Like this is like nuts. And then I think it like, so it was kind of like there was a small group of people that were into it, then the trailer hit, and then a lot of more people got into it. The Venice situation was just chef's kiss of every drama gossip person who's ever lived. It was it. I mean, think about Venice. You had Florence pretending that she was shooting Dune 2 and not showing up until the last second. When she does show up, she has this Instagram, like basically flaunting. It was so bizarre and so pointed. Oh yeah, Florence did zero press for this movie, by the way.
Right.
She's the star of the movie.
Which some people think was part of the negotiations for finishing the film. Were the people that believed that, you know, there was so much on-set drama between.
Love it. I love
her
that.
and
I didn't even know about that. I didn't know negotiation. I need to look this up tonight. That part of it is the reason why this had to be it, because this had to be the number one movie in drama, is because how widespread it was. Like how many people were into it. Like your kids wanted to write about it in high school.
Oh, I know. I know. They were
like,
all
how
about
does that
it.
make any sense?
Okay. I already said spoilers. I'll say it again. But like my favorite part of this whole thing is that, like, you know, we have kids also, you know, either provide photos or illustrations to go with their stories that go in the paper. And when we do like pop culture stuff, it's like, you know, I have to teach them not to use copyrighted images. So like, be creative, come up with your own illustration. But like they cared so little about the actual movie that like one of our illustrators was like, I really didn't know what to do to come up with a concept for an illustration to go along with this Don't Worry Darling drama story. So I just looked up the movie, and turns out, oh, it's all inside of a computer. Now I have an idea. And this is like casually like spoiling the entire twist of the film, which is just such like, I mean, teenagers are just too smart
too smart for their own good.
I love that that all this drama, that's probably my favorite part, is all this drama is packaged into this movie that thinks it's so much smarter than it is.
But you're right. Nobody cared about the movie.
No,
like nobody. And like the zenith of the entire thing, and why another reason why it has to win as number one is Spitgate. You have all of this drama going around, and there's like, I'm serious, like Twitter that night of the premiere, I was on it for like 6 hours, and it was just people just like shooting off stuff and all that sort of stuff. It was so much fun. And I thought, man, this is okay. I'm going to say this. I don't mean this as any disrespect for anybody who suffered through COVID or anything like that, but it did feel like, oh, this is kind of back to normal, where people are like focusing on something so stupid and dumb together as a group of people, like collectively across the globe, right? Like we're just obsessed with this. Spitgate was the top of it because I had multiple people texting me about it, like who were not even into movies,
right?
Who just like, wait, did Harry Styles just spit on Chris Pine at Venice? Like, number one, who follows Venice Film Festival?
Yeah, no.
Nobody. Like, film nerds, and that's about it. And then, like, people are talking about this spit thing. And it was just, like, it was so perfect. The entire thing was so perfect. And it helps that the movie was so it wasn't even terrible. It was so middling. And it just kind of makes the whole thing even better. And I don't know. What do you think? What do you say, Olivia Wilde? And we didn't even think about or talk about the CinemaCon thing where Sudeikis somehow got the process server to serve Olivia Wilde her divorce papers, or where the hell it was, on when she was presenting the movie or whatever. Like, there's just so many layers to the drama. Where does Olivia Wilde go from here? And we didn't even touch upon the Shia LaBeouf stuff.
Oh yeah,
didn't even touch upon it. I mean, it's just
yeah. What is that? What started it? I'm wondering. I don't remember the timeline. Like, just
no. So the Shia LaBeouf stuff happened. He gets fired, quote unquote fired. But no one really knows what happened. But it seemed like Shia, who is very intense on set and has his problems, obviously, with like violence and women, and like he probably was super, super intense, and Florence was not into it, and like it led to a lot of stuff on set, and then eventually Wilde had to make the decision that like, hey, we gotta like move on. This is not really working. I don't think Shia probably even cared, but then like the drama on that didn't drop until like right before the movie, like the summer before the last summer, so like a few months before the movie came out, where LaBeouf's like, I wasn't fired or something like that. Like he said he quit, and then he kept a video of Olivia Wilde, and it just looks terrible for her. Mm-hmm. And not that like Shia LaBeouf can look good, but like it just didn't look good. It kind of looked like she was playing both sides, and like, I don't know, man. I don't know where she's gonna go. She got dropped from a movie during this whole like drama, so I don't know what's going on with her.
And Harry Styles' acting career too
was over.
Yeah. But like, and the amazing thing is like, I mean, Florence Pugh seems to,
unscathed.
Absolutely
unscathed.
And Chris Pine too, and like, because like they're actually good at I don't know. Like, I agree that Booksmart had its promise.
Booksmart's a great movie. I think.
I don't think it's a great movie, but I think she had a
great
promise.
Script.
I don't think. I think Olivia Wilde's done. I don't know if she's going to make another good movie.
Well, so that's funny about that whole thing is, she made a movie before Booksmart. I might be making this up. Let me look this up really quick. But I have this distinct memory.
While you look that up, I would be remiss as we wrap things up not to mention, actually I figured out my favorite thing is not the fact that it's a crappy movie with a dumb we live inside a computer twist. It's actually Harry Styles' quote at Venice Film Festival when he's getting interviewed, and they ask him what he likes about Don't Worry Darling, and is his infamous quote. You know the quote I'm talking about, Dan?
Wait, what's the quote?
He says, quote, my favorite thing about the movie is like it feels like a movie.
No, I get what he was trying to say, because he was like, oh, like, you kind of want to go out there and like see it in person or whatever. And like Chris Pine's energy in that right next to him is literally classic. That is like
the meme of him with the headphones is great too.
Yeah, he's just like, what is going on?
Oh, Harry Styles also said it's fun to play in worlds that aren't necessarily your own. It's just like the whole like Patrick Stewart in Extras thing. It was like, how do I act? I pretend to be somebody else.
He's so good. Oh, wait. I think I found the movie. Hold on. Is this it? Did she? Oh, she produced it. She didn't direct it. Okay, that's my bad. It's called Meadowland. It's absolutely terrible. Oof. It's got her and Luke Wilson. She like kidnaps a kid. It's really weird.
That's bizarre.
Really strange. And you know what? I will say this. I got to say this about Olivia Wilde. Maybe not the best director in the world, right? But she was in Drinking Buddies, and she's phenomenal on that. So true. One of my favorite movies. Long live Mumblecore forever.
Oh my gosh! And is she going to be? I didn't realize that she's in Babylon, so I got to check that out too. Now I guess
she's in Babylon. What?
Yeah.
Also, the one thing I wanted to note too about this.
Oh gosh, she's so bad in Richard Jewell though.
She's so bad in what?
Richard Jewell.
I've never seen it. Looks
So
terrible.
bad.
Isn't that Clint Eastwood?
Yeah.
Gross. Why would you do that to yourself?
She plays a journalist that sleeps with somebody for information. It's
God. Wilde was originally set to play Pugh's part.
Oh, that's right. It was swapped.
Yeah. So she came into this movie thinking she was going to direct it and she was going to play the main character.
It would have been so bad.
Like, come on.
Speaking
I
of
don't know.
Clint Eastwood, yeah.
Yeah, exactly right. Okay, I think that closes it out, right? I think what do we have any lessons here from all of these? I would say these are all failures of films, right? Except for Northman. Northman's a masterpiece, one of my favorite movies of all time. The rest are complete trash.
Morbius is fun. Morbius is a good watch. A nice, good afternoon watch with a baby on your chest.
Yeah, maybe so. Maybe for a good nap. Any lessons here to learn if we think about Film Trace, about how we dissect these films, even good ones, bad ones, everywhere in between? Any sort of lessons from these movies that we could pull out?
You're always wanting a lesson at the end of the day, Dan. And
I want something. I want something to take home. I want something to put in a doggy bag and take home.
You're not going to like this, but the lesson is the world is chaos and good art is accidental.
No, that's not what I wanted to hear. I'll nip this. I'll wrap this up. You need a good script. I think that's
save the cat, baby.
No, like serious. Look at this. No, don't darling. On the blacklist. Terrible script.
Yeah,
terrible script.
It was on the blacklist.
It was on the blacklist. Yeah,
that's insane.
It's like, how would you make a movie like that with the ending that it has and say that that's a good script?
I would be embarrassed to turn in a script where you find out that they're in a computer.
It's a computer. Wow. Morbius, obviously not a good script. Amsterdam, Madero Rosso, terrible. Jurassic World Dominion, not even a script.
Yeah.
Essentially, it was a branding exercise, that entire movie. Northman, kind of genius, though, but also again, no script.
Yeah, the script is just bare bones.
it's just like grunts and smearing blood on people.
My favorite bit that we didn't mention about Northman is that one of the test screening pieces of feedback was that they couldn't understand the dialogue. And like, if you watch this movie, like I watched like Dolby surround and like you still don't understand what the fuck they're saying. And so like if it was less intelligible the first go around, I just can't imagine what it would have been like.
The one of the quotes was, some audience member wrote, "You need to have a master's degree in Viking history to understand like anything in this movie." Eggers goes, "Oh fuck." You gotta read the New Yorkers. It's unbelievable. The whole thing's like that. Okay, yeah. Well, what are we gonna do back? We got Bones and All coming up to close out Risque Romance.
Yes,
and then we haven't decided on the next cycle. I feel like we're going in a direction that I might be pushing you in.
No. I'm hyped about it, and we will announce it on the next episode when we close out Risque Romance.
It might involve an animal, an illicit drug as the main film. We're just gonna throw that out there.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for listening. This has been Film Trace.